Shoghi Effendi used to say there are two types of believers. There are those whose religion is Baha'i, and there are those who live for the faith. Both of them are Baha'is, but there is a big difference between the two. There is another tablet revealed by Abdul Baha which shows the difference between the two types of believers. He says there are two kinds of relationships. Two kinds of relationships of the believers to the cause of God. One kind is the relationship of, this tablet has not yet been translated into English. I hope it will be very soon. One kind is the relationship, those who are like the relationship of the flower in a garden. The other is the relationship of a ray of the sun to the sun. Oh, it would have been so wonderful if you could just stop there. He didn't. He continued. My hope, writing to the recipient of the tablet, my hope is that your relationship will be of the second kind. And he signs off. Now, he doesn't say why he has that preference. He doesn't say. He leaves it to you and to me to try and think about it, meditate about it, try to see what's the difference between these two types of relationship. The rose in the garden, now this is, of course, from now on, it is Ali speaking. It's not Abdul Baha. You are welcome to accept. You are welcome to change. You are welcome to completely disagree with me. But I am offering you my thoughts. All right, we take the first one, the plant in the garden, or let's say the rose in the garden. What's wrong with that? There is a prayer, oh God, make me a rose in thy garden. What's wrong with that? Nothing. In fact, Abdul Baha says, this is a relationship. He accepts it as a relationship. The other one is also a relationship. But what's the difference? The rose in the garden says, give me. I need water. If you don't give me water, I'll wither away. Give me water. Make sure about my soil. It should be good soil. Change my soil. Fertilize my soul. Make sure that somehow I get the light of the sun, the warmth of the sun, that I can grow. All the time, give me, and give me. What does the ray do? The ray doesn't want anything. The ray shines. It gives warmth, it gives light, it gives energy. It doesn't say, give me anything. It just gives all the time. And that, I think, perhaps, is why Abdul Baha preferred us to be rays and not just flowers. To be just a flower is what Shoghi Effendi says, our religion is Baha'i. My religion is Baha'i. I'm proud of my religion. I like it very much. But that's all. I don't do anything else. I'm just proud of it. But the ray is not like that. The ray lives for the cause of God because it gives all the time. It imparts all the time. It enlivens all the time. It inspires all the time. It assists all the time. It sacrifices all the time. I think this is my understanding. Now, as I said, you can find better reasons because Abdul Baha does not say why. Another thought that occurred to me was that you put two flowers next to each other. Of course, these flowers, thank God, have no ego. But supposing we credit some ego to these flowers, what happens? One rose will say, look at my height. You small little rose. I'm not saying anything, but never mind. The little one says, yes, it is true that you have this height. Do you have my fragrance? Do you have my scent? Look at my wonderful scent. Of course, I'm not talking about it, but never mind. Thank God these flowers do not have any ego. You put two flowers, there are two flowers. You put 5 flowers together, it's a beautiful bouquet. Wonderful. You bring 2 rays, you put them together, they become 1 ray. You put 5 rays together, they become 1 strong 5 rays. Sorry. They become 1 strong 1 ray. Yeah. That shows you what's happening up here. Okay. You put 9 rays together, they become 1 strong ray, members of its local spiritual assembly. That is true unity. But the flowers cannot become 1 rose. 2 flowers will continue to be 2 roses, but rays will unite. Because there is no self. They join, they unify, harmony. So this could be another reason. I am sure if you meditate on it, you will find good, sound other reasons, sounder than what I have suggested. I would like us to see how Shoghi Effendi summarizes the travels of Abdul Baha in the West. This is from God Passes By. During these travels, Abdul Baha displayed a vitality, a courage, a single-mindedness, a consecration to the task he had set himself to achieve that excited the wonder and admiration of those who had the privilege of observing at close hand his daily acts. Expending every ounce of his energy, day after day, from dawn till late at night, unfailing in his solicitude for the sick, the sorrowful, and the downtrodden, uncompromising in his championship of the underprivileged races and classes, bountiful as the rain in his generosity to the poor, contemptuous of the attacks launched against him, and last but not least, incomparable in the spontaneity, the genuineness and warmth of his sympathy and loving kindness, shown to friend and stranger alike, believer and unbeliever, rich and poor, high and low, whom he met. He continued for 3 crowded years to trumpet to a world sunk in materialism and already in the shadow of war, the healing, the God-given truths enshrined in his Father's revelation. Truly, it is remarkable what Abdul Baha accomplished during these 3 years. At that age, he was tired, but fatigue was not a cause for him to stop. The way Shoghi Effendi describes what he did, day after day, sometimes he would give 5 talks during 24 hours. 5 talks. It's not easy at that age to be able to do that. Friends, fatigue is not an excuse. Death is an excuse. Not fatigue. Mr. Samandari once said that one day Shoghi Effendi told him to come down from the pilgrim house when he was on pilgrimage to the master's house, and they will go together to the shrine. So he went there to the master's house. About 4 o'clock, Shoghi Effendi came out of his house. He said, when he came to see me, he looked at me. This was 1940. He looked at me, he said, my eyes are tired. My fingers are tired. Because he did all his typing himself. Nabil's narrative. See how great is that book. Everything was typed by Shoghi Effendi. The Kitab-i-Iqan by him. Epistle to the Son of the World. Prayers and meditations. Advent of Divine Justice. The Promised Day is come. All his major messages on his small, portable typewriter. He also, in those days, of course, had carbon copies. Sometimes more than one carbon copy. And you know it is, you type, it's the wrong key, then you have to correct it. One copy, you erase. Second copy, you have to erase. Third copy. That was Shoghi Effendi. So he said that my fingers are tired. Then finally, my nerves are tired. My eyes are tired. My fingers are tired. My nerves are tired. That's the first thing he said. Then he carried on discussing other things. But just imagine, 1940. He passed away in 1957. 17 years he plodded on steadfastly, unremittingly. For 17 years with this feeling of fatigue. How can fatigue be an excuse? Impossible. I would like to read to you these words uttered by Abdul Baha and recorded by Mrs. May Maxwell as they left their first pilgrimage. They left Acre, their first pilgrimage. And these words, these eternal words, were uttered by Abdul Baha. As I read them, please allow these words to sink into your hearts and allow them to remain there for the rest of your life. Pray that your hearts may be cut from yourselves and from the world, that you may be confirmed by the Holy Spirit and filled with the fire of the love of God. And now I give you a commandment between you and me, that you have faith, that your faith be steadfast as a rock, that no storms can move, that nothing can disturb, and that it endure through all things, even to the end. As ye have faith, so shall your powers and blessings be. This is the balance. This is the balance. This is the balance. Another commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, even as I love you. Look at me. Follow me. Be as I am. Take no thought for yourselves. Take no thought for yourselves or your lives, Whether you eat or whether you sleep, whether you are comfortable, whether you are well or ill, whether you are with friends or foes, whether you receive praise, whether you receive praise or blame, for all of these things, ye must not care at all. Behold a candle. Behold a candle. How it gives its light. It weeps its life away, drop by drop, in order to give forth its flame of light. As it is written in your programs, today is for reflections and footnotes. I would like to start with footnotes. In the discussion that we had about prayer, it occurred to me that I could add few points to this important subject. There is a tablet revealed by Abdul Baha in which he includes a sentence which I think is very important. In Persian, it is this: Dar aksar awqat man dar hal tazarru'an. Most of the time, I am in an attitude of prayer. He doesn't say all the time. But I don't think he means 51%. I think he means more than just 51%. Most of the time. Now, Abdul Baha was a very busy person. And from morning, early dawn, till God knows when at night, he was busy. Busy with correspondence, busy with meeting officials, busy with receiving guests, busy with pilgrims, busy with taking them to the shrines and talking to them, advising them, busy with the local believers. Every night he would meet with them. He was a very busy person. How is it possible for someone so busy to be most of the time in an attitude of prayer? I want us to think about this a little bit. The first question that comes to mind, of course, is, how is it possible to do more than one thing at the same time? If I do that, I can't do anything. Is this correct? According to what I understand, it is not correct. I can do a number of things at the same time. I sit in a car of my friend. He is driving. At the same time, he has to watch the traffic. He has to see if there is any problem with the engine or with his tires. If he hears anything which is unfamiliar, he's worried. And the traffic. And he has me sitting next to him. And he has a conversation with me. And he makes points and he laughs about it. And he discusses it. All these things he's doing at the same time. And what's more, he has his radio on, he's listening to the news. And furthermore, he receives a phone call, or mobile as we call it. And he's talking and discussing all the things at the same time. Of course it is possible. And we should try to do that. We should try to live according to what Abdul Baha says. He's saying this about himself so that we learn how to live. He is our exemplar. We have to be like him. So I suggest that we think about this. How is it possible for us to feel that we are in an attitude of prayer? To feel that we are in the presence of God. To feel that He sees me all the time. He knows me. Maybe He has also cohorts, hosts of the kingdom, or at least one of them, to assist. So we should be in an attitude of prayer. It's such an important thing to be aware that we are in the presence of our Lord while we are doing anything. Of course, He doesn't say all the time, nor does He say open a prayer book and read the prayer. No. He says an attitude of prayer, in the mood of prayer, feeling the presence of God all the time. So I thought that this point was important enough for me to add as a footnote. I want to share with you a story that I heard from Janab Samandari, Tarazullah Samandari. I'm sure you have heard his name, Hand of the Cause of God, and so on. He said that during the ministry of Abdul Baha, he had been asked by the beloved master, together with another Baha'i, his name was Mirza Ali Akbar Rafsanjani, to travel all over Iran and Ashgabat in order to help the Friends, comfort the Friends, because it was a time when the second commission of investigation had come to the Holy Land, and there was a fear that he might be condemned to death, maybe exiled, or in some form persecuted, and no one knew what was going to happen. So he wanted the Friends in Iran to be aware that there is a danger, that he doesn't have a moment's assurance of life, of safety. But if anything should happen, he wanted the Friends to be united. He wanted the Friends to be aware and not in any way worry about the future of the cause, because this was God's holy cause, and it's going to be protected, preserved, and in every way looked after and watched over by Baha'u'llah. So with this introduction, now Mr. Samandari is on pilgrimage in the days of Abdul Baha. And Abdul Baha used to meet the local Friends and the pilgrims every night in the house of Abdullah Pasha, in what was known as the Biruni. It was a room where he met with the local Friends and so on. He says the practice, of course, was Abdul Baha would speak, there would be prayers, there would be readings from some of the tablets for about 1 hour, and then he would stand up and leave, and everybody dispersed. He said that one day Abdul Baha apparently finished his talk. Then he looked at Janab Samandari and he said, "You say something to the Friends." Samandari said, before coming here, if we have any question, we put the words together and memorize the sentence so that it's clear, so we don't stumble over words. But when we come here, we forget everything. Now, what can I say? In your presence, what can I say? Abdul Baha took no notice. He said, "You say something to the Friends." Samandari said, "I did not know what to say." Suddenly I remembered an incident during our travels in Iran. So I told them about this story. The story goes like this. We arrived in a village. There were Baha'is, there are local believers. Most of the village were Baha'is. And we stayed there 3 days. We were so impressed by the unity, the harmony which existed in this community. Everybody pure-heartedly, lovingly were united in harmony with each other. Also, we were impressed by the fact that every morning they got up at dawn, and even with their children, they would come and gather in one house and have prayers. So that was it. We were very happy. We were going to leave. Before we left, they said, "Oh no, please don't go now. We want to show you something." So they took us to the edge of the village, which was a river. And this side of the river was this village, where most of them were Baha'is. And the other side of the bank of the river was the Muslim village. They said, "Look at our wheat. This is a field of wheat. Look at the height of the grass. Look at the other side. See, compare the other height of the wheat with ours. This one is so high. The other one is so low. The seeds are the same seeds. We take them from the government. The water is the same water that irrigates the fields. The soil is the same soil. The air is the same air. The sun is the same sun. How is it that ours grows like this, so healthily, so freshly, but the other is so slow? We said it is because of your unity, and it is because of your prayers. That was his story. Abdul Baha said, your answer was correct. Unity and prayer. If you like, prayer and unity. That brings freshness, strength, joy to the hearts, and even has an effect on the vegetable world. When I was speaking about prayer, I said that there is a need for preparation, as I understood it, because of the example of the ladder, that there is then the reading of the revealed word, and then there is your private conversation with your Creator, through the manifestation of God, or the manifestation of God Himself. Open your heart and see what you want to say, even if it is, thank you. All praise be to you for all the blessings you have given me. Even if that, it should be in our own, we should feel about it and express it. That's the third stage. I want to tell you what I have seen over and over again. When I was a youth, when I was a junior youth, when I was fully aware, when I was a full youth, and when I was on pilgrimage as well. Shoghi Effendi, I'm talking about now the early years, was always the last to enter the shrines. He would stand near the door and pour rose water into the hands, the palms of the people, the believers. And then when everybody had gone inside the shrine, the friends were aware that he's going to come last. They always left an aisle for him to be able to pass through. He would be the last to enter. What did he do? He first prostrated himself at the threshold. After his prostration, it wasn't too long. He would stand up. There is the tablet of visitation. Well, he knew the tablet of visitation by heart, because in the shrine of Baha'u'llah there is no tablet of visitation there at all. It was always by heart. He knew that, the tablets. But he was standing in front of the tablet. And there was again a pause, and then he would chant. Now, I don't want to describe his heavenly voice, his heavenly melody. That's something else. Now it's finished. This is the revealed word now. What does he do? Does he come out immediately? No. He prostrates himself a second time. Total silence. Everybody is standing. Because no one wants to disturb Shoghi Effendi's prostration. He prostrates himself. This time it's longer. He's having his conversation with Baha'u'llah, we should suppose. Longer than the first prostration. Then he would stand up and back out. Some of the pilgrims, the local believers knew that they should avoid anything that would disturb him. Some of the pilgrims were not fully aware. So as he was coming out, instead of continuing to face the shrine, they would turn their faces towards him as he went out of respect to Shoghi Effendi. He did not like it. He would put his shoes on and wait on such occasions. He would wait until those pilgrims that he saw were bowing to him and not turning their faces continuing to turn their faces to the shrine. In a subdued voice, he would say, when you are in the shrines, your focus should be the threshold of the shrine, not on others. So this last part has nothing to do with an attitude of prayer. My point is, in relating this little incident about my pilgrimages or the period when I was particularly during the first period of my life, was the fact that I could see right there that there are 3 stages. First, a prostration, preparing himself for the recitation of the tablet, the revealed word, then the recitation of the tablet itself, and then again a pause, even a longer pause for his personal exchange with Baha'u'llah or through Abdul Baha or whatever it was. I thought I should share this feeling with you. You know that prayer of Abdul Baha, make firm our steps, O Lord. And then there is that sentence where he describes what true prayer is. A prayer that shall rise above words and letters and transcend the murmur of syllables and sound. That's prayer. When I see some people come here, they read the prayer, they disappear. It doesn't touch my heart, to tell you the truth. I prefer someone to come here, first of all, pause a little bit. The Persians have a very wonderful way of doing this. They start with, He is God. Huwallah. Sometimes they even say, Huwallah, in other words, please be quiet. A feeling of attention, of pause, of reverence. Then the prayer. And then when the prayer is finished, they don't just disappear, they pause a little bit. Then they leave. That's true prayer. When of course, we are together. When you are at home, you can do it the way you like. But when you are in public here, and when we read the prayer should be clear, should be heard by everybody. It is true that I have hearing aids and I'm half deaf, but I see that others tell me we did not hear the words. We mumble. We jump immediately as if there is somebody pressing us to finish the prayer. The reading of the prayer is so that everybody will hear. You are not praying just for yourself so that you hear it yourself. You are really to deliver the prayer in a reverent way to the friends, because this is why you are there, to chant that prayer or to recite that prayer. Okay. Now, I would like to share with you some of my reflections. The Greatest Holy Leaf loved children very much. And my mother had a special relationship with the Greatest Holy Leaf because she had spent her youth in the Master's house, in the house of Abdullah Pasha, as a child. So we used to go to the Master's house quite often because the Greatest Holy Leaf sometimes asked my mother to come to help her. One day, I was about 5 years old, and the Greatest Holy Leaf, as I said, loved children. And she had a habit of, if she wanted to show special love or affection to somebody, she would have her hands, 2 hands, she would ask the person she's talking to put their hand between her 2 hands. And God knows, every time she did this with my small little hand, the softness of the palms of her hand, I will never forget, really. Velvety, silken, extremely soft. She would hold this hand. One day she told me, looking at me as a child, she said, what would you like to do when you grow up? Of course, she was talking in Persian. Quickly, I wanted to say, I want to be like my father because my father was a teacher. By teacher, I meant teaching the cause. And we have a special word in Persian which describes this, muballigh in Persian. So I said, I wanted to say, I want to become a muballigh. I said the wrong word. She was holding my, oh. You know what I had said? Instead of saying, I want to become a Baha'i teacher of some kind, I said, I want to become a prophet. For those of you who are Persian, I said, I want to become Peygambar. He said, oh. She called my mother in the other room. Fatma Khanum, come. Your son is ready to declare his mission. As I said, we never left the Greatest Holy Leaf without receiving something from her. Always. Either a chocolate, or she would give some Persian gas that the Persian pilgrims had come to her and given her. Always she gives something to us. My brother Jalal had a different personality than I had. He was very loud, he was very open, very extrovert and everything. Of course, he was a child at that time. He told me that when he was once alone in the presence of the Greatest Holy Leaf, she didn't have any sweets or anything. She opened her purse, and in those days it was the British mandate. So the currency was British. So she pulled out 1 shilling, and she gave the shilling to my brother Jalal. And she said, half of this is for you, and half of it is for your brother. You go and buy ice cream for yourself. My brother, a performer, takes the coin, because she said half of it, you see. He takes the coin in front of her and he tries to break the coin. He said, it's very difficult, Khanum, very difficult. She laughed. She opened her purse again, gave him another shilling. One for you, one for your brother. I would like to say a few things about my memories with Shoghi Effendi. As I told you, it was the habit of Shoghi Effendi to always, in my early years, of course, later on, things changed. As the number of pilgrims and the local believers, there were no more local believers, more or less, in Haifa. So there were only pilgrims. But in the early years, there was a community of 350 Baha'is in Haifa. So it was full. So what happened at that time? Now I am a junior youth. I am 12 years old now, what I'm going to recount to you. Shoghi Effendi would remove his shoes, and there was no arcade, no dome, nothing. In the open, he would stand with a container for rose water in his hand. By the way, he was left-handed. He always kept it in his left hand. But when he wrote in his right hand. But left hand, everything else was left hand. So he was holding there with his left hand, and the friends would come one at a time, and he would pour some rose water in their palms, and then they would enter the shrine. So that was. Now, of course, the line was moving. Suddenly, the line stopped. Everybody is curious. What's happened? So everybody's trying to see what has happened. I saw that Shoghi Effendi is holding this container of rose water in his hand, and there is a local believer waiting to receive it, and Shoghi Effendi is hesitating. He looks at this person from head to toe, from toe to head. Suspense. Of course, it could have been maybe 1 minute, but to me, for example, it appeared to be 5 minutes. When you are waiting, not knowing what's going to happen. Finally, Shoghi Effendi decided to give him the rose water. He gave it to him. He went in. That's the end of the story. But I want to tell you, friends, what happened to me. As a 12-year-old, I said to myself, Ali, Shoghi Effendi's heart is sensitive. There must have been a problem with this guy. If you do something wrong, At that age, I was thinking about this. If you do something wrong and your turn comes to receive your share of rose water, and Shoghi Effendi hesitates to give it to you, how would you feel? You should be careful about your behavior. Watch your behavior. I'll just share another little story with you. This is now, I'm grown up, I'm no more a child, I'm no more a junior youth. Now I'm on pilgrimage. I've come from Africa, and there are other pilgrims as well. That morning we were in Baha'i and we came in the afternoon. Shoghi Effendi that particular day was already in the gardens. So we were in the pilgrim house, one of us were outside and the others were inside, and Shoghi Effendi was seen in the gardens. So he signaled to us, come forward to join him. So we all ran from the pilgrim house to where he was in the garden. There was an elderly gentleman among us. So by the time we reached Shoghi Effendi, he started coughing. Coughing. Of course, Shoghi Effendi was walking and we were following him. He heard this coughing. He said, looking at him back, he said, you are tired. This elderly pilgrim said, beloved guardian, we were tired, but now that we are in your presence, we have forgotten all our fatigue. Shoghi Effendi was walking. He heard this, he stopped, turned his face. I looked at this beautiful face of Shoghi Effendi. He's not happy. With a very loving voice, he said, why did you say this? The poor man did not know what to say. He was silent. If there was a hole there, I think he was ready to go into the hole and disappear there. He just stood there, didn't know what to say. So Shoghi Effendi continued. He said, what you should have said was, we were tired. Now that we are in the precincts of the shrine of the Bab, we have forgotten our fatigue. That's what you should have said. Then he continued. He said, you did not come here to see me. God knows we were there to see him. Never mind. He said, you came here to visit the shrines. Then he said this last sentence. He said, the friends should not fix their gaze on individuals. In Persian, he said, أحبا نباید ناظر به افراد باشد. He included himself among the individuals. He, the sign of God. That was this degree of not liking praise. He did not like praise. All the time fixed on Baha'u'llah, on Abdul Baha, on the Bab, not himself. I remember one day we were in the presence of Shoghi Effendi when I was much younger, in the early years, and the room was full. The pilgrim house was full of the local believers and pilgrims and so on. And then it was the practice of Shoghi Effendi when he spoke to the friends, he would have a pause, and after the pause he would change the subject and say something else. It was that moment of pause. Suddenly we saw that one of the local believers pulled out from his pocket a piece of paper and started reading. He didn't even ask for permission from Shoghi Effendi to read what he wanted to read. I was there, I was shocked when I saw this man. He starts reading. It is a poem. It's in Arabic. It's a poem. First line, second line. It was clear in praise of Shoghi Effendi. He stopped him. He said, enough, it is enough. Kafis. He didn't allow him to continue. Then he said, when the friends want to write poems or in praise of the figures of the faith, it should be about Baha'u'llah, about the Bab, about Abdul Baha, not about me. No. That was the degree of his true divine humility. That's what it was. You remember I spoke to you about the tablet of Abdul Baha to be a flower or a plant in the garden, and to become a ray instead of a rose, to become a ray from the sun. And I shared with you what Shoghi Effendi said regarding those whose religion is Baha'i and those who live for the faith. What a big difference between these two. All of them are believers, but one of them is minimum, one of them is maximum, or aiming to be maximum, because we can never reach maximum. Because if we reach maximum, we are Abdul Baha. Possible. But to be satisfied with the mediocre minimum. What is the mediocre minimum? It is, supposing it's 100% scale, 50.01. I am above. I am above the average because I'm 50.01. I'm not minority. I am above average. Do you think this is healthy? I can slip easily from 50 to 49.9 and 49.8 and then 40 and then 39 and then 30. Where will I be? It's a dangerous mediocre, very dangerous. So I think what we should do is not to be satisfied with the minimum, but to aim at the maximum. Over 50.01, at least 50.1. 50.2. How about 50.9? 60, 61, 65. What's wrong with that? 70, 80, 90, 100, possible. We should be high up, as high as we can, and not be satisfied with the mediocre 50%. There is a tablet revealed by Abdul Baha in which he says, of course, gratitude, thankfulness for blessings received by God, from God, is of course good, no doubt. But he says, unfortunately, this tablet has not been translated into English, but it has a very important point. He says that if you think carefully, it is impossible for any person to thank God adequately. The word adequately is there, which should be written in capital letters. Adequately. Impossible for any man to offer adequately his gratitude to God for even one of his blessings, one of his gifts. It is impossible, Abdul Baha says. It is impossible. What we should do is to quietly think, have I received blessings? Do I have blessings from God? Oh yes, I do. All right, I take a piece of paper and write this. Oh yes, another. I mean, 5, 6, 7 clear blessings that I have received. Even more than 6. I remember still another 8, 9, 10. Abdul Baha tells me, Ali, you want to thank God for these? You cannot do it adequately for even one. His answer, therefore, he says, therefore, your only recourse is to feel that you are in the presence of your Lord and you are shamefaced. In Persian, he says, sharmsar, shamefaced, abashed, blushing, ashamed of yourself. for you have received far, far more than what you truly deserve. This is not Ali speaking. I summarized for you this tablet revealed by Abdul Baha. I would like to read this prayer for you. I would like to see if you see, as I do, a process in this prayer, a well-known prayer of Baha'u'llah. I know not, O my God, what the fire is which thou didst kindle in thy land. Earth can never cloud its splendor, nor water quench its flame. All the peoples of the world are powerless to resist its force. Great is the blessedness of him that hath drawn nigh unto it and heard its roaring. Some, O my God, thou didst, through thy strengthening grace, enable to approach it, while others thou didst keep back by reason of what their hands have wrought in thy days. Whoso hath hasted towards it and attained unto it, hath in his eagerness to gaze on thy beauty, yielded his life in thy path, and ascended unto thee, wholly detached from aught else except thyself. I beseech thee, O my Lord, by this fire which blazeth and rageth in the world of creation, to rend asunder the veils that have hindered me from appearing before the throne of thy majesty, and from standing at the door of thy gate. Do thou ordain for me, O my Lord, every good thing thou didst send down in thy book, and suffer me not to be far removed from the shelter of thy mercy. Powerful art thou to do what pleaseth thee. Thou art verily the all-powerful, the most generous. What I understand from this prayer is, this is a prayer that's addressed to all of us. Baha'u'llah is saying that there is a fire. This fire is blazing and raging in the world of creation. This is the cause of God. The fire of the cause of God. Now, I am an individual. I know that there is a fire. I have been to it to some extent. I've felt its warmth. I've seen even its flames. Now I know that I must teach. Now what do I do? I want to give you now a story that is only a creation of my own mind. It does not exist anywhere in the writings in this way. I tried to understand this prayer and see the process. Supposing I see a piece of metal in a valley. It's a piece of iron, rusty, dirty, muddy. Supposing I communicate now, because I'm supposed to mix with the people, and this is an individual in the valley of this world. I say, do you know that there is a fire which is raging and blazing in the world of creation? He says, no, I've never heard. Do you want me to show it to you? Yeah, I don't mind. So I go along with this piece of metal, maybe in my hand, and as we are approaching a mountain, we see that there is smoke. Of course, in this prayer, there is no mention of the smoke. This is Ali Nakhjavani who is adding something now. I tell the piece of metal, you see that smoke? Where there is a smoke, there is fire, you know. He says, yes, I've heard about that. Let's see. So we approach. We approach Baha'u'llah. The first thing he says, draw nigh unto it and heard its roaring. He has seen the smoke. He is approaching. He hears the crackling of the fuel, of the wood. I tell him, do you hear the crackling? There should be fire. You hear it? He said, yes, I do. Let's get closer. Let's get nearer. When he gets nearer, he feels the warmth. He was cold, now he feels the warmth. There is something here. There is fire, no doubt. Let's approach it more. He sees the flame. It is fire. Baha'u'llah does not stop there. Because he wants that in his eagerness to gaze on its beauty, he is yielding his life in his path. So I tell my piece of metal, I say, you want to really know what the fire is? Throw yourself into the fire. He throws himself into the fire. He sheds all his dirt, then he sheds all his rust, and then he starts ignited, this piece of iron, ignited. He becomes red hot. He acquires the qualities of fire. You look, you don't know where the fire is ended and where the metal has ended. They are all the same. He's on fire. He understands. He understands what the beauty is. There is a process. I have to be with this piece of metal all along. This is the parent-child relationship, friends. We should realize that we cannot relinquish this responsibility. We have started in finding the ready soul. We have to be with that ready soul all along. They go into the institute process, fine, he's still my child. I continue to invite him, to show love to him, to help him, to assist him. Then there will be, as I said, far less dropouts. Finally, I want to share with you this thought here. If the individual believer be kindled with the fire of his love, we have to be kindled ourselves. If the individual believer be kindled with the fire of his love, there is another if. If he forgetteth all created things, the words he uttereth shall set on fire them that hear him. He puts two conditions so that our words will set on fire the hearts of our hearers. The first is, if he be kindled with the fire of his love. My dear friends, there are two types of love. I think I may have spoken about love, ardent love and ordinary love. Have I spoken to you about this or I have not? No. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk about that. There are another two types of love. You find this reference in the tablet of Baha'u'llah to the king of Iran, to Nasruddin Shah. He says, those who are around you love you, and I also love you. But those who are around you love you because of the privileges, the gifts that they receive from you. I love you for your own sake. I don't want anything from you. Immediately you see there are two types of love. If I may use my own vocabulary, there is selfish love, there is selfless love. A world of difference between the two. Both are love. But one is selfish. But when it comes to the teaching work, how to apply this now? He says, to be kindled with the fire of the love of God. That love should be selfless, not selfish. In other words, I should not expect any reward. I should not expect any praise. I should not expect any recognition of any kind, or from any quarter, of any kind. That's selfless love. Selfish love, it is for people to know that I who taught this gentleman or this. They would say, oh, Ali is a good teacher. Bravo. Oh. As I often say, this is zero. Nothing. Nothing in the sight of God is selfishness. This is egotism. This is self-love. This is desire and passion. Selfless love. No reward. No praise. Even if instead of praise I hear blame, neither blame nor praise should affect me. No. I do it for him. He knows it's enough. That is the pure spirit. That is the pure heart. That is the pure motive. That is when the fire burns. And the other one is to forget all created things. Everything. I've already touched on this point when I was speaking about pure love. Forget everything. It includes myself. I should first forget myself. That's my number one. I should forget myself. In his will and testament, Abdul Baha says, look at the disciples of Christ. See what they did. And the first thing is, they forgot themselves. That's the first condition he's describing in the disciples of Christ. They forgot themselves. I have to forget myself, to think of him and him alone. When that happens, then, of course, the words, as Abdul Baha says, the words he uttereth will affect the souls of the seekers. You know, we have in the writings some analogies given so that we understand how important it is not to fall into the snare of self and passion, of the ego. We have